Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again are my co-hosts, Richie O'Leary and Alec Krauthamel. Got another commitment to discuss in the class of 2026, a defensive end from Florida. Get into what he brings to the table and how Rutgers found him. We got another decommit from the class, but this one is a bit different than the majority of the others. And we're going to discuss a kid who is committing today who might end up with the Scarlet Knights. We're still trying to figure that out. And then Alec went to NBA Draft's Media Day yesterday, and he'll talk about his experience there with some of the big boys in the industry. But let's talk about the commitment first and foremost. Rutgers got a commitment yesterday from Florida defensive lineman Reece Beck out of Ponte Vedra High School, Ponte Vedra, Florida. He's 6'6", 250 pounds. It looks like he is somebody who is a bit under the radar. He had a handful of FBS offers. Richie, how did Rutgers find this kid, and who was the main competition for him that they won?
Rutgers worked out on Sunday and basically offered him on Sunday. And then all of a sudden Saturday hit, and that was it. Done. Or I'm sorry, not Saturday, Monday. Committed on Monday right after getting the offer. Loved everything about the campus. Told me he was very hyped about just a visit and just earning the offer in general. He's from Ponte Vedra, which is a high school that they didn't really touch too often down in the Jacksonville area. They did get Kyle Federico from there, but also they've recruited the area pretty highly, whether it be Fleming Island with Trey Sneed, Abram Wright, Sebastian Cruz in this cycle. They also have the 2027 kid and Connor Wynn, who plays at Bartram Trail, and all these guys are in the same kind of region, same area. He just really did well at camp. He's a freak athlete, 6'5.5", 250, 80-inch wingspan, 4'6", 40, and he's part of the 1,100-pound weight club or weight room club at his high school. That includes a 495 squat, a 280 clean, and a 255 bench rep. Those are some crazy numbers. So the kid is just freaky athletic. And they just did a really good job of just getting him to campus. And I don't know if you could say they kept him under the radar, because Oregon State had him for an official. UConn had him for an official. Syracuse just had him on campus last week and offered immediately. So it just sounds like Rutgers got involved relatively quickly and just offered, and boom, here we go. We got another commit.
Yeah, he a weird aside, he played, if you remember, Jason Babin. Jason Babin is one of his high school assistant coaches. He played with both of his sons at Ponte Vedra High School. So we're trying to reach out to him to see what he has to say about the kid, given that he was a former first-round pick at defensive end. He's been under his tutelage for a bit. Alec, what's some stuff that stood out to you about Reece Beck on film?
I feel like we say this after every commitment, particularly on the defensive side, but the athleticism really sticks out. His burst off the snap is really good. The way he's able to get into the backfield in a hurry. He's lined up on the inside and on the outside, which is definitely a good sign for his versatility. Definitely going to need to add some weight. He's 6'6", which is good, but 245, 250, going to need to add on to that. But the athleticism is definitely there. If you look at, obviously, like you see right now, the way he can get off the snap, can get past even the interior offensive line, and then also the tackles as well. Lining up inside where he can just kind of bull rush through them, or if they line him up wide on the outside where he can just kind of use his speed to work around the tackles. Definitely a lot to like. I like that we're seeing in his highlights. It's not just the sacks, which obviously the sacks are good, but sacks aren't everything, particularly for the defensive line. As a defensive lineman, it's about obviously more than just getting to the quarterback, which is great, but you got to get pressures. You got to obviously have good pursuit angles, which he does have. So definitely going to need to add some size, and it seems like might need to add some more technical stuff, how to actually beat a guy without your speed, because obviously in the Big Ten, the guys are big and strong and athletic. So, but that's kind of how it usually goes for high school defensive linemen. So, definitely an interesting under the radar one. Again, for a defensive guy, they're going after some traits. Obviously, Richie said he tested really, really well. It looks like they're once again banking on some things that you can't teach, like the athleticism and the burst off the line, and seeing what you can teach with becoming a defensive lineman.
Yeah, and he plays in a school that's in the 5A category in Florida, which is one of the higher categories in Florida. Like Richie mentioned, he played against 2 Rutgers commits last year on his schedule. Had 12 sacks in 2024. Just like beats the hell out of quarterbacks. Like there's almost every clip on his tape is getting a hit in on the a legal hit in on the quarterback. So he's generating a lot of pressure, getting a lot of sacks. Richie, what are some things that jumped out to you on his tape that you like?
Yeah, like Alex said, like it's a lot of speed rushes and just kind of using his speed to his advantage, and you can get away with that, obviously, at the high school level. College level, I think he's going to have to work on his hand technique a little bit. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of pass rush moves. It's mostly just I'm quicker than you, I'm faster than you, and I'm bending more than you around that edge too. But that's stuff you can teach. It's the athleticism that really intrigues me. Like even chasing down quarterbacks in the backfield, like that 4.69 40 looks pretty legit just based on how quick he is able to get quarterbacks that are rolling out or get the running back that's going to the edge. It's just he is very, very quick, not just off the snap, but really like even in this play right here, you see him able to chase down the quarterback and just create havoc back there, basically. So I think all the athletic traits are there, and that's kind of what we said about most of this class. It's just all about athleticism, and we'll teach you the technique, and we'll figure that out. And this is where you got to trust one of the 18 different defensive line coaches they have now. So they'll figure it out there.
I was going to say almost every you could basically get like a coach per kid, given how big the staff has gotten. When you talk about the grad assistants and like the volunteer assistants and the assistant defensive ends coach,
quality control, this that, like
yeah,
it's crazy.
So I mean, they might have had him on campus for a workout, but I can't imagine they didn't see this kid on tape when you're looking at the tight end commit from Bartram Trail, when you're looking at Sebastian Cruz's tape from Fleming Island. Like this is definitely somebody they had to have seen on tape, and we're like, who's 92? Who is this guy?
Happens more often than you think.
Yeah, yep. Anything else about Beck's commitment that we wanted to touch on before we move on to some other topics?
I think the 250 pounds is where it gets interesting. If he is a legitimate 250. Now, like we have him at 245 on our profiles. He's listed at 250.8 at one of his recent camps he went to. I think it was the Syracuse camp. So does he grow into a defensive tackle? Does he stay at end? I know they want to keep him at end right now, but when you pack on like 30 pounds, you probably need to be around 300, I guess, in the Big Ten probably, realistically. But they have a couple 290, 295 defensive tackles, and he's still not even a high school senior yet. Like he could technically pack on more weight this offseason and pack on even more at Rutgers. So I'm just intrigued to see kind of where he fits. I think you start him at defensive end and then go from there. One of those type of situations.
Yeah, with his speed, you ideally want to keep him at defensive end.
Yeah.
But like you said, if he's legitimately 250, from what he looks like on tape, he looks like he has the frame to add 30 plus more pounds. So he could be an absolute monster by the time he's a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah.
Like the pickup, just continues, like Alec and Richie have said, to be pretty clear that they're looking for certain traits, athletic traits, and certain traits in terms of physicality for these defensive additions, which he's definitely got. All right, cool. Let's talk about a decommitment. So the yin to the yang here. Yesterday, Rutgers lost Tyrell Simpson to Virginia Tech, who flipped. Rich, you know way more about this than I do. Did he take a visit to Virginia Tech, or what's the situation with him flipping from Rutgers to Virginia Tech?
Yeah, so he was at Virginia Tech this past weekend. There's some background stuff, some family things that are kind of causing this to look a lot closer to home over the past couple weeks, and ended up visiting Virginia Tech. I'm not actually sure if the staff knew about the visit or not, but they did know that there was kind of like a little bit of a push to stay close to home. Just some family things in the background is taken care of, and it does suck for Rutgers because I love Tyrell Simpson's tape. I think he's massive. I think he has so much potential, and like you can't really teach 6'7", 300. So it does suck, but this is still, even without him, is still one of their better offensive line classes in recent history. They already have 5 guys. They're already pushing for a 6. It's it does sting a little bit, and people are panicking just because there's just been a little bit of a flurry of decommitments, whether it be Rael Kelly to Alabama and who was it, Justin Edwards to Miami. Those are 2 blue blood flips. Those are totally different than this one. Those are like, hey, they're going to go to the guy that's going to pay them the most, mostly. Whereas this one is with Simpson's a little bit different, and there's some other stuff playing a factor here that is causing him to stay home. Who knows? Because like in reality, Brent Pry could be fired after this year, and then all of a sudden, look, Tyrell Simpson's in the portal. Hey, I remember him. Want to come back up here, and we'll figure it out later. And so there's always a chance. You always got to build those keep those relationships open. And we'll see what happens in the next year or two, because, like I said, Brent Pry might just be done in the next 7 months, 8 months.
Yeah, that's one of the things about recruiting. You can't ever burn these bridges whenever you lose someone, because they could be coming back to you after a year or two if they go in the portal. So yeah, definitely a tough one. But like Richie said, it's still a really strong offensive line class. It seemed like they might have even been out of room for a couple that they originally wanted as well. So it's it definitely stinks, and I thought he had a really high ceiling at Rutgers working with Pat Flaherty, but yeah, if it's some family stuff, obviously that's more important. Take care of that. You can't ever blame him for that.
Yeah, no, he was a guy I liked, but you got to take care of what you got to take care of, and wish him well. But Rutgers moves on. And the guy they might be moving on to is committing today. Jesse Moody, the Philadelphia native, he is committing this afternoon. He's down to Rutgers or Maryland. Richie, have you got any inside scoop as to where he might be leading?
So this kind of would be the perfect replacement. 6'7", 320, like legit.
Huge.
I'm sorry, 6'7", 320 listed. When he went to the Under Armour camp in June, he was 6'6.5", 341. So he's a lot bigger than that. He's pretty quick. Maybe not that quick actually. 5'5", 40. I read that wrong originally. Yeah, no, not at all. But anyway, he is an interesting prospect. He comes from Imhotep Charter, which is like one of the top talent producing programs in the state of Pennsylvania, year in and year out. I think they have 3 to 4 Power 5 guys minimum, if not 5 to 6 FBS guys every single year. So it'd be good to get in there. I'm pretty confident this will end up being Rutgers. I don't want to say 100% sure because things change, obviously, on a dime now with recruiting. I do like Rutgers' chances, but he did visit Maryland more recently, and that's going to be the other competition. And Maryland does pretty good with Imhotep Charter kids too. So we'll kind of wait and see here. I think this is the perfect replacement. I know Rutgers felt really good after his visit back on, June 6th weekend, I think it was. And they were pretty confident following that visit. It almost sounded like he was very close to committing too that weekend, or maybe even silently committing. But he wanted to take the other 2 visits to, I believe it was Wake Forest and Maryland. I know it was definitely Maryland, but there was someone in between. It was either Wake Forest, Virginia, or Virginia Tech, one of those 3. I'll double check on that. But I think he's a solid get if they can get him. Massive, fills the need, and then adds to this. Like I said, this is one of the better offensive line classes in recent history. So go from there.
Yeah, he's got a lot of offers. If you look at his profile, Boston College, Duke, Florida State, Georgia, Indiana, Maryland, Miami, Nebraska, Oregon, Penn State, South Carolina. I realize being in Imhotep you might get a few more offers than most kids. I don't think, for example, like he could have committed to Penn State or Oregon, given that they're listed. But this is a kid who's got a lot of high majors who are interested in him. So be a pretty good pickup for sure.
Well, I just want to pop this up real quick. His Under Armour camp showing down in Baltimore. I think it was the weekend after the New Jersey one. It's actually a pretty good look. Here we go. Like he does pretty well here. Now, mind you, like you're not supposed to be throwing people in these drills, but or falling on them. And he does it a couple times, but
I mean, that just to me shows that he's a motherfucker. Like if you're doing that kind of stuff in a camp setting and like getting guys to the ground, like you're antagonizing a bit and you're not backing down. So I mean, that's the kind of attitude you need from an offensive lineman, honestly, to be a good one.
And a lot of these kids in these drills always fall for the spin move, and you see him. I think it's not this one. I think it's the next clip. He stands his ground and actually holds it perfectly. No, it's the next one after this. It's one of these clips. Yeah, it's just
there. It is.
Yeah. So I mean, it's such a disadvantage for offensive linemen in these drills, and he looked really good in those. So
it's also such a weird kind of thing to do, just like one-on-ones between linemen in shorts and a t-shirt, because like so much of what you're gripping onto is like pads and like jersey and like even though you're not supposed to hold, like that's where you get your grip from.
And you have help next to you too. Like usually there's usually a guy, at least, even if it's just a shoulder bump, it's still a little bit of a bump, and it's just so for him to do that I thought was pretty impressive.
Yep. All right, so that's what could be on tap for later today. But speaking of later today, the NBA draft is tonight starting at 8 p.m. for the first round. Rutgers is expected to get 2 guys in the top 10, we'll say conservatively. Alec, you got to hear from both Ace and Dylan yesterday at the NBA Draft Media Day. Let's first talk about just the general experience in New York City, one of the hottest days of the year. What was the journey like for Alec to get to the media day, and what was the experience like in general?
Yeah, this stuff is not for the weak, is what I'll say. No, but it was fun. It was very hot, and by the time I got done, I ended up taking the train back with my dad, who was also working in the city yesterday. I had like a circular spot on like the end of my shirt because I was just like wiping my forehead so much. The subway was, oh man, it was brutal. The car itself had air conditioning, which was nice. The problem was I got off at 5th and 53rd. The problem was they were doing some construction around where that was supposed to be, and I don't know if I don't know why, but it was closed off. And then across the street there was like an exit, and it said no entry. So I had to, woe is me, walk 2 whole blocks up to 53rd and 7th to get in that station. But I was doing a couple like loops around trying to find like where the actual station was. But in the end, it all worked out. I still got there and I still got home in time. But yeah, the actual media day itself, it was really cool. Started off, it was a draft panel. I posted the video on Twitter of them talking about Ace and Dylan with John Fanta, Jay Billis, and Bobby Marks, who, I mean, they all have their own experiences. Obviously, Fanta's watched a lot of college basketball. He watched a lot of Dylan and Ace. He's covered Rutgers plenty this year. Obviously, Jay Billis is on the ESPN broadcast every year. One of those guys that also big time college basketball guy and also NBA draft analyst. And then Bobby Marks has experience in the front office. I think he's also on the broadcast, I want to say, but I'm not 100% sure. But he has plenty of experience in the front office as well. So it was really good to hear from all of them. Obviously what they said on Ace and Dylan, they had a lot of really good insight on a lot of different things about the drafts. That was really cool. And then after that, it was the players scrum, I guess you could call it. It was like a conference room, I guess, or a ballroom. I don't know. But it was 8 podiums around in a circle around like the edge of the room, and there were 3 sessions. So Ace Dylan was in the second one. He also had Cooper Flagg in that one as well, so kind of like split it up a little bit, I guess, of all the people that wanted to talk to them. But then Ace was in the third one, and he was definitely the big star of that one. But it was a really cool experience, I will say. Definitely tough when there is what had to be around like 20 people around Ace and Dylan both. It was kind of crazy. But it was definitely a really cool experience, and hearing them talk about, the draft process, what they're looking for in teams and whatever. I thought it was pretty cool. It was funny, after Ace was done, someone gave him a yo-yo because during the season, I forget which game it was, someone had asked him about that or whatever, and he started doing yo-yo tricks in the room after he was done with his interviews. So that was pretty funny. I thought for Ace it was interesting because obviously the talk of the town with Ace was, skipping some of his work, declining some of his workouts, things like that. He kind of deflected and saying like he's just focused on basketball and things like that. He's only focused on what he can control. So he kind of brushed off those kinds of like big time questions about it. But yeah, it was definitely a really cool experience. Definitely enjoyed it. And if Rutgers does have a guy in that range, would definitely go again. It was very cool.
Yeah, no, I think in the future, if you end up going there again, as a Rutgers, media member, it'll be a different experience because I don't think Rutgers will ever be in this position again where they have two potentially top 5 players. But was there anything specific that Ace or Dylan said that you were like, oh, really? That's cool. Or anything that was like noteworthy? Because they spoke for a while. I think Dylan spoke for like 16, 17 minutes. Ace, I don't know how long his interview was.
I think it was around the same.
Yeah.
Let's see, trying to think, because there was definitely a lot that they got asked about, a bunch of random stuff. Actually, one of the funnier answers that I got that I heard from Ace, he was asked, what is one like crazy rule change you would put in basketball? He said, eliminate out of bounds. I don't really know how that would work. I believe his terminology was no more out of bounds, just buckets, which is extremely on brand for him.
Dude, I feel like whatever team ends up getting Ace is just gonna like love the kid. Like,
oh yeah.
Richie's pointing his hand up. Maybe it's the Nets, but
Fivers.
I've seen a lot of quotes from Ace in the lead up to the draft that like he didn't really allow that kind of side of himself to be shown. Maybe that was like intentional, but like, you know, when somebody asked him about his like 2 weaknesses, like his answer was hilarious. Just like he just seems like such a positive, like fun guy to be around. And I think a lot of what's happening in the pre-draft process isn't indicative of the person he is.
Nope.
So I hope that he has a ton of success wherever he ends up, which is hopefully in Philly. Richie's hoping for the Nets. Alec, you're hoping for the Nets. The Nets added another first-round pick. Maybe that's where he ends up. I don't know.
They got a first-round pick for nothing. They took on Terrence Mann's contract, which he's making $15 million over the next 3 years. That's not that bad. And they got a first-round pick, and they gave up nothing. So Sean Marks feels like he's got something brewing in the works.
Legitimately nothing. Like we traded nothing back, and we got.
Yeah, that was in the Kristaps Porzingis trade from last night. Yeah,
It's crazy.
I don't know how they managed that, but I was going to say with Dylan, it was a lot of the similar stuff. He was asked about the Spurs. He said, I know as much as you guys do, just letting the process kind of like work itself out. He said he hasn't talked to a ton of guys with the Spurs, but he has talked with Stephon Castle, which is obviously cool because they'll be in the backcourt together most likely if the Spurs pick him. Just a lot of the similar stuff that we'd heard from the two of them. On campus. It was pretty cool. It was pretty funny though. At one point when Ace was having his interviews, because Dylan finished before him, Dylan just kind of came up and like stood behind him on the podium. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited for Dylan because that's such a great place to land for him, especially given their history of player development, given that he's not going to be expected to like be the guy day one, but if he is the guy, that's another thing entirely. But being Wemby's running mate for the next 10 to 15 years, like, is there a better position? Like, as a guy who is a playmaker and a penetrator, like, you're going to have so much space in that offense because people are just terrified of Wemby. So, really excited for him overall. And wherever Ace ends up, I'm sure he's going to be good too. But hopefully it's Philly.
Yeah. I mean, not to mention, like, Mitch Johnson is, like, the favorite for Coach of the Year. Like, they're going to be a good team next year. Like, they're going to make a run. And year one, that's pretty cool. And it's like, I feel like I've seen this whole, and I might be looking way too far ahead, but I've seen this whole track before. When they draft a Rutgers player, they win a chip in Kansas City. Draft a Rutgers player, you win a chip in San Antonio.
Yeah, okay.
See where I'm going there a little bit, kind of. So you never know. But hopefully Ace Bailey becomes a net. And I think you're right, though. I do think that this is definitely not indicative of him, of like everything that's been going on. Ace is the nicest kid in the world. We've dealt with him so many times. He's goofy. I don't see a goofy kid being like, I'm not going to Philly. Fuck Philly. Like, fuck the workout. Like, like, it's obviously people in the background. And I just think he just wants the ball. He doesn't care where he's at, whether it's Philly, Charlotte, Utah, Brooklyn, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't think he just wants the ball. And I mean, it goes based on what Alex said. Again, guy doesn't even want out of bounds. He just wants to shoot.
That was the funniest part. Even after saying no out of bounds, he of course followed up with just buckets. I don't really know how that would work, but I mean, it's quite a creative idea.
Insane.
I just can't believe the draft's here already. We go right from an all-time NBA Finals on ending Sunday night. The awful injury with Halliburton. You have the several huge trades. You have KD getting traded on Sunday. You have Boston shedding seemingly every non-max guy on their team.
Yeah.
yesterday, CJ McCollum got traded. Like there's just like Jordan Poole got like swapped for him. I don't know. There's just like so much going on.
I wanted to see Jordan Poole and Ace Bailey on the same team, just chucking buckets.
I mean, let's be real. If he does end up with the Wizards, I like having CJ McCollum as the unk rather than Jordan Poole.
100%. It just would have been funny to watch those two just chuck.
Yeah.
Well, they also have Chris Middleton too, so that also helps.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. Those are like two like super professional, like, you know, great veteran leader. Like I think CJ McCollum's like the head of the players union. Like,
well, I don't know if I would be bragging about that if I were him right now, based on the current apron situation of the league.
What I mean is he's got his shit together. He's not.
Yeah, he's very well. Well, he was very well respected within the league.
Yeah,
I think, and I could be wrong on this. He went to Lehigh, right?
McCollum did, yeah. He was on that team.
So there was one time last time Lehigh came to Rutgers. I don't know if it was this year or last year. I forget when it was. It may have been 2 years ago, actually, or 3 years ago. I remember seeing McCollum jerseys, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, small world. But
I think that was the season opener 3 years ago, and that game went to overtime when it probably shouldn't have.
There's a lot of things that probably shouldn't have happened, and then we're gonna have to hear all about that other nonsense too today. That's gonna be how are they not better? Why did they not win more? If they're both so good, like yada yada yada. We see it on the boards. We're seeing it on Twitter. It's I get text messages about it from my friends still. Yeah, not fun.
8 p.m. ESPN tonight. Watch the NBA draft. Enjoy it. It's cool when there's a draft that like there is so much mystery about what's going to happen. I feel like a lot of the times it's pretty telegraphed, like 1 through 5 at least, and just to only really know what's going to happen 1 and 2. Just opens up a world of intrigue. So excited to watch. And we will, of course, have something for you guys later this week talking about the landing spots. What else do we got going on in the near future, content-wise?
Nothing. July, dead period for the whole month. A little bit of a change for the recruiting calendar. They usually have a weekend at the end of July. That's where they'll have that barbecue. Instead, they had it Sunday because there is no July period. So you're just going to go right into football season, basically. August hits, and we're talking camp already. So we're 1 month away, a little over a month away. So it should be fun. I mean, I don't know what else we got really going on. There's baseball stuff going on, but it's like transfer portal.
I mean, basketball summer workouts are on too.
Yes, we will be at one of those in the next couple weeks, I was told. Pikel wants to see what his team looks like before, obviously, the media sees it, which is fair considering there's 10 new bodies basically. So yeah, that's kind of it. We're just waiting, honestly.
Well, we will have, I'm sure, stuff to talk about at some point, but nothing that clearly indicates, oh yeah, that's probably when we'll have our next pod.
We should probably, I don't know if we need to do a pod for this, but July 1st, there's a pretty big merger going on.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be a big takeover.
Rivals merger.
Yeah, nothing changes for everyone. Just to clarify, it's still Rutgers.rivals.com. You go to that URL, you're going to see a lot of cosmetic upgrades. You're going to see a lot of insane upgrades, actually, because we're going to have NIL evaluations. We're going to have more national help, more hoops recruiting scoop. So I would say wait to July 1st. I don't want to encourage people not to sign up now, but if you wait till July 1st, there's going to be a pretty nice promo that you're literally going to be like, I can't even buy a coffee for that cheap.
Wow.
And you want me to sign up for the year? Okay, sure. Sign me up. You can kind of guess if you know how On3 works, what that promo is going to be already. But yeah, definitely wait for that because it's going to be very exciting, and you're finally able to post photos on forums. Like, this is insane. Like, it's just
you were able to do that in the past.
You had to use the what do you call it, weekend as like moderators and stuff.
Oh, that's why
people have to go through like a streaming service to go do it. Like you have to go like what was the old one?
You have to like upload to like Imgur or IMDb or whatever.
Show my age.
Did you just say IMDb?
IMGBB. It's like another online image.
I thought you said IMDb.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess you could do that if you have a profile on there and upload a picture, but probably not the most efficient way to do it.
So that should be very, very exciting for everyone listening. And again, highly wait till July 1st before you sign up. I don't want to tell people not to, but just hold on your horses. It'll be worth it.
Oh, there is also one more thing that I wanted to mention. It's been a while since I've mentioned women's basketball on the podcast, but they filled out the coaching staff. They did fill out the coaching staff. They had 3 openings, which not always a great thing to happen in June, but they filled it out. Definitely the biggest name is taking Shannon LaBeouf. I hope I'm saying that right. From UCLA.
LaBeouf.
She's the what?
LaBeouf.
Yeah, sure, close enough. From UCLA, she's now the senior associate head coach. She was the number 2 to Corey Close at UCLA, who's obviously one of the top programs in the country for a long time. She's there for 14 years, and yet now she's at Rutgers. Back in March, there's a feature done on her. I forget which outlet did it, but Corey Close, the head coach of UCLA, said she's my rock, period. She's had so many other opportunities when she could have gotten a head coaching job, could have gotten another Power 4 job. If you ask anybody in the country, and I promise you it would come out who their top 5 assistant coaches in the country, she's on everyone's list. So that is a really big time hire. So it seems like, really big hire. I'm honestly not sure how they convinced her to move across the country to Rutgers, but they did it, and now they got a really solid associate head coach. Also coming on as the defensive coordinator is her husband, Sean, who is at UC Riverside. He's worked some pretty solid defenses. He also has experience at Arizona, obviously with UC Riverside. He was also an assistant coach at Northern Colorado for a season. So he's kind of worked all over the place, mostly on the West Coast, but he has some JUCO head coaching experience where he had some pretty solid success at Paris Junior College in Texas. He's had a lot of high school experience as well. So adding to the defense, I think it's pretty solid as a defensive coordinator. Also helps convince Shannon LaBeouf to take that Rutgers job when her husband is also taking a Rutgers job. So I'm sure that helped. Director of Recruiting Operations, Danny Edwards from SMU. She was there for the last 4 years. SMU was pretty solid in the AAC the last few years. She was also an assistant there. She also has Big Ten experience. She was the director of player personnel for Michigan a few years ago. She was also director of player personnel she started as the director of player personnel at SMU. Now coming to Rutgers. She was a pretty solid player at Clemson, made an NCAA tournament there. Another new assistant coach, James Spinelli, the director of scouting and analytics, probably taking over for Will McIntyre's at Florida Gulf Coast, also an assistant coach. He's from New Jersey, which is always a good help. Coming from Northeastern, he was an assistant there. He's also a video coordinator at Notre Dame for 5 years when Coquise Washington was there, so that's the connection there. So that's all the assistant coaches. And then Nneka Enempali will be the chief of staff. She was an assistant and the director of recruiting operations for the last 2 years. She'll be the chief of staff, working with a lot of, obviously external factors. Also a big one, working with the staff to work out, revenue sharing and NIL efforts, so things like that. So it's definitely a very important hire. Pretty overhauled coaching staff. Obviously the big fish is getting Shannon LaBeouf from UCLA. But yeah, it seems like they have made some solid hires.
Well, I think you got your answer as to how they pulled it off. If you,
I'm sure
work with your husband, I'm sure that UCLA was probably, given that they're, what were they, a top 10, top 5 team last year?
I mean, they made the Final Four. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a tougher sell than Rutgers, who's like, yeah, you want to come here? Yeah. Who else do you have in your extended orbit? You got any cousins to coach? You got any kids that you want to bring along? Be a towel boy, towel girl, whatever.
Odds-on favorite to be the next head coach too. It's gonna happen. It's a matter unless she can pull magic out of thin air. Like it's.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how this stuff gets negotiated because I've seen some people try to find it, but I've seen them say she's the only senior associate head coach they can find in the country. So I don't know how that works. Again, there's still no AD yet, so I'm not sure who's negotiating that and all that, but. Yeah, if things do go south this year, I think that would be probably call number 1 if they were to make a change at the head coach spot.
One more thing before we sign off here. A certain new women's lacrosse transfer. Now, would we ever talk about this? Probably not. But since it's this transfer, it makes sense to talk about it. Liv Peichel, Steve Peichel's daughter, is transferred in from North Carolina. 2-time national champ, appeared in 44 games, I think it was, over 3 seasons. Redshirted in 2022, and I think that's when they won their first chip. And then they won, this past season, 2025. So pretty cool to see another Peichel in Rutgers gear, and a good one at that, because that's a pretty damn good North Carolina team that I don't think lost a game last year.
Yeah, no, they're one of the best, if not the best, women's lacrosse program in the country. She was I don't know how many starts she made, but when you're playing that many games for a national champion, she won a national champion as a freshman. She won it again last year as a junior, played in 15 games. It's a big time addition. And the women's lacrosse program has had success, but it's kind of different when you bring in a senior leader who's a multi-time national champion. I think that brings some juice to the room. So see how that goes. But yeah, big addition. And the Pikel's, I'm sure Steve is super excited to, be able to see his daughter on campus. Cause I think his son was, Rutgers, or no, not his son. Sorry. Kevin's, committed to Stony Brook.
NYU, Sacred Heart, Stony Brook.
Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart. Yeah.
That's what it was.
I think Ben Asher's still there.
No,
Okay.
Ben Asher's
Tom Barrett. Sorry, Ben Asher's at Utah State. Tom Barrett's still there. Yeah,
correct. So,
all right. So that is all we've got for today. Thanks once again for listening. Excited about the draft tonight. Thanks everybody who's rated, reviewed, subscribed. It really helps. We're going to run some kind of promotion again before training camp or during training camp to get some more reviews, hopefully, because we're trying to break 200 on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So
we had we had a
waiting.
pretty solid milestone recently.
Oh yeah, we hit we hit a pretty big number for the podcast in terms of plays. So we're excited about that. I don't know if I want to put that number out, but
it's
Rich,
a big number.
Rich, if you want to, you can.
No. We'll keep that one a secret. Just say, ain't no one touching us in numbers.
100 billion views everywhere.
Pretty close.
$100 billion. All right. Thanks once again, everybody, for listening. For me, Richie and Alec, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.